to the G5 Hive in our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Today, we'll be heading over to the Mid-American Conference for some MACtion and taking a look at Central Michigan Chippewas, who are coming off a 4-8 season. They wrapped up their 2025 spring practice with their first spring game in 7 years on April 12th. We have a special guest joining us today. He is the TV and radio voice of the Central Michigan Chippewas. He is Adam Jaksa. Adam can be found on X at Adam Jaksa, Jaksa. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Hey guys, great to see your faces again. 1 year later.
One year later, we're great to have you back and share your knowledge with CMU football. I think back to that big game against Oklahoma State, and you were like, I was right there. I was right over here. I remember all parts of that. It was a highlight in getting a chance to talk with you last year, and we're very, very grateful that you've coming back here for a second year. And can you tell us, I guess, a little bit about yourself for those who are just tuning into the G5 Hive for the first time, and how long you've been covering Central Michigan football?
Yeah, of course. I love the intro. Yeah, and that was the first thing I was looking for selfishly. I'm like, oh, did they get the cut where I'm over there with the camera and I was still in the shot? That was a crazy moment with everybody coming across the end zone. But yeah, I went to school at CMU from 2011 to 2014, and then I graduated and went out way to Wyoming for like 5 or 6 months at a local small radio station, and then the MAC signed the deal with ESPN, so I came back in December of 2014. So from December of 2014 to now, I've called our ESPN 3 or ESPN Plus games for women's basketball, men's basketball, wrestling, gymnastics, volleyball. And then I think it was 2015, 2016, when that game was for Oklahoma State, I was doing sideline for, at the time, I think we were IMG Learfield, for the radio broadcast. And then in 2019, I started doing the play-by-play for both basketball and for football on the radio. And then I also do the Lansing Lugnuts games since 2019. They were the affiliate of the Blue Jays. Now they're the affiliate of the Athletics. So 365, we got games we're calling somewhere in the mid-Michigan area. And I will be a Chippewa salutant for the rest of my life. I've had an absolute blast covering everything up in Mount Pleasant.
You also maybe got the call to the big leagues. Did I see that right? You were calling some MLB games?
I did, yeah. So like I said, the Lugnuts are an A's affiliate, so we don't get to see much of them because they're way out in California. So when they come play the Tigers, because they've struggled and they are so young, a lot of our Lugnuts at the high A level, they've advanced up to the Athletics roster within 2-3 years because we just became an Athletics affiliate in 2021. So we went to Detroit and Comerica Park, me and my broadcast partner, Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, to go just see our guys, check in with the broadcasters and the media team of the Athletics. And their director of broadcasting saw we were there an hour before the game and said, "You guys are here? You're going on the air." And Jesse made his major league debut at Fenway in 2022. I'd never called a game yet. So we got 2 innings, the second and the third inning. And that was an absolute thrill, man. 4 pitches in, my first batter of MLB play-by-play, and Spencer Torkelson hit a home run to left. So it was just like the team that I grew up watching and loving as a Michigander, playing the team that has our former Lugnuts that we called a few years ago, and they're colliding together. And you guys will love this. In that game, Dietrich Enns was starting for the Tigers. It was his debut as a Tiger, the former Chippewa. Zach McKinstry was also starting, the former Chippewa. And those 2 Chippewas played for my uncle, Steve Jaksa, who used to be the head coach at CMU. So again, it was like every world collided that could for me that day at Comerica Park.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool full circle kind of moment.
It was awesome, man. It was like I came home and just like, what just happened? What happened today?
Awesome. Well, let's move over to some Central Michigan football talk, and we'll start with the man in charge. The Chippewas have hired Matt Drinkle as their new coach. Drinkle spent the last 6 seasons at Army with multiple roles there, assistant coach, offensive line, co-offensive coordinator under head coach Jeff Monken. What can you tell us about Coach Drinkle and what he brings to the table for the Chippewas?
If you guys ever get to Mount Pleasant for a game or cover us on the road, make sure you go meet him because you guys would absolutely love him. He is already in, you said it, 6-7 months being on the job, become an absolute favorite with all the fans. He is very detail oriented. He's in the know and wants everybody to know about his program. And it's not him, it's his team. He wants the community to be involved. He wants the alums to make sure that they are passionate about this group. He wants Central Michigan to become the forefront of Michigan and the MAC once again. So he is very open and honest about his goals and where they're trying to get Central Michigan back to their glory days. And he is doing everything certainly to get them ready on the football field, but also to make sure that people are excited again about CMU. Not that they weren't, but just, get a little pulse back to Central Michigan football. So if you've checked out our social media channels, he is very adamant about just getting the guys out there in front of the camera and who are they and who are the community members that pour in and support this program. So you'll see it on Twitter and Instagram. They're very active. They're very open and honest and transparent. And he's a football dude. You guys think, I think of a Jim Harbaugh or a Dan Campbell just because I'm a Michigander and those guys just being football guys. That's what he reminds me of. Your total Midwest, down-to-earth dude that if you guys walked in and started talking about your favorite fullbacks, the guy that came from Iowa and was just at Army would have a ball and sit in there and talk to you for half an hour about ball. He's your simple, I love football, but he is very in the know with what's going on. And he's very detail oriented and meticulous about his plans on how to bring Central Michigan football back. So he's been great. The fans are super excited. I don't remember. And again, I've been covering or at CMU since 2011. I can't remember a year that fans were this excited going in, especially with a brand new coach and especially coming off of 3 straight years of losing, which is something they hadn't seen since the early 2000s. So I give him a ton of credit of not just coming in, but coming in and building up everybody around Central Michigan in this program and this university and getting them super excited about what they're going to see this fall.
Well, you talked about his social media presence. The 2 things that stick out the most in my mind are the run the damn ball hat and then his post about where are all the fullbacks? We need fullbacks, looking for fullbacks.
Yeah. I mean, he's old school, right? He's not, he said it, I'm not going to be the Army offense where we're never going to throw and we're going to run it. But he is that old school, we absolutely want to control the line of scrimmage. And I think the other thing that I really love about him, and I think the fans and alums are going to love, he is so in the know with our tradition. There's so many coaches that, you guys get it? It's not like they're bad people, but they come into a small program and they know, hey, this is just a stepping stone. I'm trying to get to the next job. He is fully immersed with what it is that makes Central Michigan Central Michigan. And I mean, just look at the dudes that have been churned out and the production on the offensive line. He pays attention to the Dramati's that have come before, the Kramers that have come before, and then the stock full talent of players that have come through here. And that goes into his preparation for how they plan to attack not only this first year, but just their tenure at Central Michigan into trying to win this league for the first time in 16 years.
Well, as it often happens when you get a new head coach, that means new assistants, new coordinators. Central Michigan's no different in that regard. But Coach Drinkle's kind of brought in, not he has brought in a pair of OCs, which is a little bit different than other coaches. They bring in one guy. He's brought in two. You got Jim Chapin comes in via Eastern Washington, where he serves as the OC and quarterbacks coach, while Derek Fulton comes in via Grandview University in Des Moines, Iowa, where he served as the OC for the NAIA program. Fun fact, I'm from Ankeny, down the street from Grandview, so not too far. So got some ties here, I feel like, to the Chippewas. Has there been any indication as to who's going to be calling plays here in 2025?
Did you think that I'd be able to shout out and say, go Ankeny Hawks? Because I got you, man.
You think so? Here we go.
There it is.
There it is.
Shout out Jace Bauer, our former starting quarterback. He was an Ankeny Hawk and led them to a state championship. So I know all about him out there.
Once a Hawk, always a Hawk.
As for your question, yeah, I think it's going to be Jim Chapin, and he is listed as our offensive coordinator. I know that Fulton is listed as the co-OC, but I do believe it is going to be Jim that's calling plays. So we'll see what it looks like. But I know he was the OC at Eastern Washington, and I think that's expected to be his role here this fall, once again, in year one at Central Michigan.
Well, I guess now that we know that Coach Chapin is going to be calling the plays, can you describe the type of offense that Coach Chapin plans to run there at Central Michigan?
Yeah, I'm interested. I think that, again, they're going to pass the ball. They're going to throw the ball. They want to be balanced. And I think it's going to be diverse. I don't think there's going to be one formation or the other. I think there's going to be a lot of different options for what they do. And that's based on, I think, the personnel. Like, they've got a bunch of different quarterbacks and guys with different skill sets. They've got a few different running backs and tight ends and wide receivers. And not to be like super generic with you guys, but in full transparency, like, I don't know. I'm truly excited. I've heard little things and seen some stuff, but I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But I've heard from what Coach Drinkle said in his press conference that they're going to be a power spread type of offense. So that's what I expect to see. I expect to see him out of the shotgun. I expect to see guys in motion, but I also expect, I think, and unfortunately, again, a Michigander, I have to admit this, but I think of like the Urban Meyer days at Ohio State where like he spread you out, but like when they needed to get 2 or 3 tough yards, like they could line up and play bully ball. That's the type of offense that I think of when I think about what they describe with their power spread attack that he wants to bring here to Mount Pleasant.
Well, let's move over to this quarterback group that's going to lead this Chippewas offense. And last year's starter, Joe Labus, returns in 2025, along with promising youngster Jaden Glasser. Due to injuries, Glasser got 3 starts under his belt a year ago, but was still able to preserve his red shirt. The staff also brought in Angel Flores from Northern Arizona and Marcus Beeman from Butte College. What are your expectations for this quarterback room heading into 2025?
Yeah, guys, I have really high expectations. Again, I'm never going to run from it. Like, I really think that this team has a chance to be the surprise in the MAC this year. I really do. And maybe I'm completely wrong. That's what's great about this. We don't know. But there's a lot of talent on this roster, and there's a lot of unknown. Like Joe Labus, he was pretty darn good last year for half the year. And that was with an offensive line and a wide receiver group that was extremely banged up. I mean, not only did we go to the 4th quarterback and a true freshman, there was like 5 wide receivers out by the end of the year. So the offense was kind of decimated. And even with that, through the first 4 or 5 games, Labus did a really nice job back there of finding his guys, moving around in the pocket, and just gaining experience. Because as you guys know, like, he hadn't started at Iowa. That was his first time being a starter outside of the one, I think it was a Music City Bowl that he played in for the Hawkeyes the one year, but he was always waiting, and he was a great high school quarterback. So I think the experience of what he was able to do last year for half the season, and then being able to get his surgery and compete in spring ball, and then now go with this group in fall camp, I think he is going to be someone that could take off this year. You mentioned Jaden Glasser. they think he is super talented. And how could you not? I mean, CMU hadn't won that Victory Cannon Trophy in a few years, and they hadn't won that Victory Cannon Trophy against Western Michigan at home since 2010. And I know it wasn't this glorious game, but at the end of the day, you're asking a true freshman in a rivalry game to help you get a win against these guys for the first time in over a decade, and he did. So he's got some moxie about him, and he's got a huge arm, a bunch of talent. And then you guys mentioned the experience. Angel Flores, Marcus Beeman, they are just going to add depth to that quarterback position. And there's some ability with dual threat too from those guys as well. So I think there's a lot of options, and going, kind of back to what you guys asked about the offense and what does it look like. I think it's going to depend on who they start and who gets the bulk of the snaps, because they're obviously going to try and tailor that offense to that individual's best skill set. But there's a lot of position groups on this team that seem like they have good depth. And I think the quarterback spot is the perfect example of a spot on this roster that has tons of ability and a decent amount of options for who's going to step up and win that role and then take off with it.
You talked about Jaden Glasser's playing style there a little bit with the dual threat ability and the big arm. For those not familiar with Joey Labus, how would you describe his playing style?
Yeah, I think Joey's more of a pro-style guy. Again, from, watching the quarterbacks we'd seen the past few years under Jim McElwain, by far he was the most comfortable in the pocket, right? Like, he got the football and he looked like a 4-year starter in high school that racked up 1 million yards and was one of the top quarterbacks coming out of the state of Ohio, which, again, you guys understand like how good football is at the high school level in the state of Ohio. So for him to get that and be recruited by Kirk Ferentz and go to Iowa, like, he was getting a ton of attention. Pro style guy, good arm, good pocket presence, but also that escapability. Like, he seems to have that, I feel like quarterback coaches say they've got that like internal clock, that cliche. I'm going to bring that out for you guys. But like, he was able to sense when pressure was coming last year. And again, it was kind of herky jerky with the offense. So there was times where they were getting to the passer a lot. Whether that was breakdowns in tight end blocking or wide receiver or offensive line or injuries, whatever it was, there wasn't a cohesion last year. But because of Joe's presence back there through the first 5 games, he made it look better, I think, than it would have if you had someone like a true freshman or something back there that didn't have as much experience or didn't have that internal clock. So I think of Joe as kind of that calm customer, competitive guy, quiet leader, but also someone that's got a really good arm. And if you give him time, he's going to make his throws. But also, if you don't give him time, he's got the ability to scramble out of situations, extend plays, and then he can use his legs as well at times.
Well, let's move on over to the running back room, and this room has a lot of opportunity in front of them here in 2025, as you got Marion Lukes, B.J. Harris, Miles Bailey. They've all graduated. That trio were their top 3 rushers from 2024 and combined for 1,510 yards on 302 attempts, and they cashed in 11 touchdowns on the ground. You got Nari Biggins and Brock Townsend are the lone returners in this room who saw a rushing attempt in 2024. The staff also added Trey Cornist from Tulane. Adam, how does the staff plan to deploy these running backs here in 2025?
Yeah, this is a group that's going to look brand new. As you mentioned, we got used to Marion Lukes and Miles Bailey, and the M&M boys been back there for a long time, but I still think, again, this is a talented group. We haven't seen them as much. I think they're going to use them as a rotation. I think those first couple that you mentioned, Trey Cornish transfers in, big body, experience at Tulane. They like what he adds. Nari Biggins, a guy that, man, he's switched positions a couple of times. He was playing defensive back a couple of years ago. They moved him to running back last year with basically like not a ton of reps. and he looked supernatural in the backfield. So he's got the most experience here at CMU just because of what he did last year. And then you add Cornish, and then with Brock Townsend, just a real physical guy that didn't get a ton of carries last year, but was getting the reps in practice, was around. His dad played here at CMU. Like, those three together right now, without, knowing what they look like through the entirety of fall camp, I would think those three have the advantage of getting the bulk of the carries because they've got talent, and I think they could be really explosive and fun to watch.
So you talked about this backfield being a committee approach, and you got Cornish, Biggins, Townsend. What skill sets do they bring? Is there a guy who's better placed for that third down goal line back, a short yardage guy? Hey, we're going to use this guy first and second down, a pass catching back. Can you describe their skill sets?
Yeah, for sure. And again, I haven't seen him in full, but Cornish is a big dude. Like, he's a physical runner, downhill runner. I would imagine he's going to be an option for a first down back, depending on who wins that job, because I'm sure they want to do multiple backs. I think it's kind of outdated to just have one running back. That's a lot of wear and tear, especially in the midst of November in the Midwest, and it's chilly, and you got to be able to run the ball, and you got to stay fresh running the ball. He's certainly an option to be first down carries, but I think certainly that's a guy that you'd want in 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 situations because of his big size. I think the same thing for Brock Townsend. Bigger guy, physical. He wants the contact from the way you watch him run. Now, I don't know that personally, but watching him run, that dude looks like he's ready to take on like 7 linebackers at one time, and he's going to run through all of them. And then you've got now Biggins, who also could be a first down back. He could win the job. I think he probably has the most speed out in the open space of the three. I was impressed with the way he cut last year. Like, you guys know what I'm saying. When you see a running back and you can just tell, like, that dude knows what he's doing. He has the intangibles to make the cuts. And this was his first year, like, being one of the guys in the backfield. He looked the part. So without knowing exactly, you got 2 bigger backs, and you've got Biggins, who's a little bit of a smaller, faster back, but still has great size. And I think any one of those 3 could be first down backs, but also any one of those 3, ride that hot hand, could be the guy that they go to in a specific game.
All right, Adam, you are the coach for week 1 against San Jose State. You've flown all the way out there. Who are you giving the first carry to out of this running back room?
I think it's going to be Biggins, just because of the experience. He was here last year. I'm reverting to the experience. I'm going to go with Biggins, and he's a great story, man. I love the guys that don't have that direct path, right? They didn't come in as this like 4 or 5-star talent and exactly know their position right away. Like, he's bounced around. He was playing defense, but he's a team guy. He moves to offense. He had some good runs last year, and now he's back, running back again this year, and it's a brand new staff, and they love him back there. So I'm going to go with Biggins.
Well, let's move over to this wide receiver room. And the Chippewas lose their top 4 receivers from 2024. Chris Parker's off to UConn, and Evan Boyd is heading to Michigan State, while Jesse Prewitt III and Solomon Davis have graduated. Between the return of Jordan Williams and Tommy McIntosh, this room returns 8 receptions for 80 yards. Like the running back room, this wide receiver room has plenty of opportunity to see someone kind of make a big impact here in 2025. What are your expectations for these wide receivers, Adam?
Yeah, a lot of new faces, but talent. So my expectation is these guys are going to produce. I mean, they have to produce, right? It can't just be running back and offensive line, or it can't just be wide receiver and quarterback. Like, you really do need every position group to produce. And if you want to look back, as Central Michigan fans have watched the last 3 years, the offense has not been cohesive. And that's what we got accustomed to when we saw good Jim McElwain teams, or when we saw good John Bonamigo teams, or Dan Enos teams, or Butch Jones, or Brian Kelly. Like, the MAC is an offensive league. It's a quarterback league. You got to have a good offense to be able to possess the football. And when they did that in 2019 and 2021, they were in the MAC championship game, or they were a crazy comeback / botched field goal snap away from going to the MAC championship game. So that's what I'm looking for this year, is for the wide receivers to play more of a role, for you truly to have that balanced attack. Because again, I know this is a different coaching staff, but when your offense is balanced, that's when your offense is at its best, because it's keeping the defense unsure about what you're going to do next. So yeah, high expectations for the wide receivers. I think Tyson Davis is certainly a guy that you look to. I think he was either 1 or 2 in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns a couple of years ago, and he got injured. I think it was the week before their first game last year. So he had gone most of fall camp. They're expecting this guy to return, and then he goes down for the year. He is back. He's looked great. They are super excited about Tommy McIntosh. And we've been waiting. I mean, a little behind the curtain, I'm from like living in DeWitt right now. And Tommy is from DeWitt. He helped them win their first state title. Rob Zimmerman has had a great program in DeWitt. And he goes to Wisconsin, and not much happens. And then he comes to CMU, and you're thinking, okay, we're going to see vintage Tommy McIntosh like we saw back at DeWitt High School for the Panthers. And we haven't seen it. Spring ball, apparently, he was everywhere. And they think this dude is about to have a year. And some of it is just confidence. Like, a guy hasn't had the opportunity to showcase his skills and needs to just get out there and try something different, get some confidence in him, make a couple of catches, and boom, you're off and rolling. So they have high expectations for Tommy McIntosh. I think Tyson Davis is another guy. And I think Langston Lewis is another Chippewa that's back that was injured, that caught some balls a couple of years ago. He didn't play much of last year. Maybe it was an injury. I'm not sure, but he was out last year and didn't get a chance to play. They expect him to be back and bring some depth to the wide receiver core. And then I think another one to watch is Justin Ruffin is a true freshman. He's certainly brand new to the program and brand new to college football, which is never easy. But he's that guy that he's got great hands. He's catching the football. He's maybe a guy that can run some motion and they can spring him loose in the backfield. He's another one to look for. So, I think we might say this a decent amount, that they've got new faces or individuals that haven't produced, at least in the last year. So you're going, oh, they're brand new. I don't know about the position, but they've got talent. Like CMU football, it's every year they have a talented roster. It's just about whether guys can produce and come through that season. And I think there's certainly those capabilities in the wide receiver room this year.
Well, in a Chafin offense, it seems like, looking at his time at Eastern Washington, his wide receiver one, if you will, always seemed to kind of come from the slot. Any of those guys you think, or a couple of guys you think might have a leg up on, earning that role there in the slot?
Yeah, I think the Ruffin, Justin Ruffin, is a guy that would be my number one look at the slot. I think there's a couple other individuals that can step into that, but Ruffin right now would be the guy that I'm looking for to potentially fill that role. And again, who knows? Maybe that changes, because that's a true freshman, and they'll have a full month to get ready for that first game against San Jose State. But I know they really liked what he added in spring ball.
Well, let's move on over to the tight end group. With the coaching changes, what have you been able to learn in terms of how the tight ends are going to be utilized in this offense?
Yeah, this is a part that I think is very important for, again, a team that wants to be able to line up and run the football, but also be able to spread you out. I think you could be multiple sets. Like, I think there could be one tight end on the field. I think there could be two tight ends on the field. So you need blockers, you need catchers. And from talking to this staff, they think the tight end room is one of the most deepest that they have on this entire roster, not just offense, but in totality. They are super excited about the tight end room. Like, I bring up the tight end room and you just see them like get super, super excited about the potential here. And again, it's a bunch of new dudes. I mean, there's a couple guys that have caught some balls and, there's a couple guys that have been on the roster, but I can't remember. Like, it's been a minute since there's been like a breakout tight end at Central Michigan. Like, I'm almost thinking back to like Tony Poljan when he was at quarterback and he switched over to tight end. Like, they haven't had, I should say Joe Wilson. Joe Wilson was a great tight end that they had a couple of years ago. But it's been a little bit. It's been a couple of years since they've had that big threat tight end. So I think the tight end position is going to be really key for this offense. And they're going to want to use it in multiple ways, but they're going to have to block first. That's always the key. You got to be able to block, and then you got to be able to leak out and go catch the football as well.
So you got to block so you can get on the field. Adam, the staff is excited about the tight end room. Is there anybody in particular that they've, spoke highly about, spoke often about? Who do you think that Chippewa fans and college football fans and MAC fans should get to know in this room?
Yeah, there's a few, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna look at my notes here because I've got, again, I was given a ton of names. Number one, they started with the Corian Temple, DC. He was on the basketball team this year. The basketball team and the previous staff under Tony Barbie, they needed an extra body because they had 3 or 4 big guys that were injured. So they asked Coach Drinkle and they said, hey, we know you got DC, who was a great high school basketball player at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Would you be open to allowing him to come out and compete? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. Take him. So they took him, and they said this guy came back from basketball. I don't know what the heck they did with him, but he is a different person. Like, he came out physical and ready to go, and they said he tore up spring ball. Caught the ball, blocked well, and he looked explosive. Kind of what I think Coach McElwain and the staff expected him to be when they recruited him. So I think you start with Temple. We'll see what he provides, but he can stay healthy. I think he's got an opportunity to have a breakout season. Nathan Van Timmeren is one of their favorites. Like, just a guy that is a throwback, runs it, and he can catch the ball, but he's helpful in pass blocking. He's a guy that they like. Rory Callahan is another guy that's in there that could get some run. I think it was, I'm not for sure on this, but I think Rusty and Van Wetzinga. There was a tweet that that Drink put out asking for fullbacks to send their tape. And I could be getting this wrong. I know, and I think it was.
He did send out. Yes. That's what I was referring to earlier.
Yes, and I think it might have been Rusty, which is a guy that comes directly from Iowa, I believe. And they just think of him as like the neck rolling Mike Allstott type of guy. And they love that. So, like, he's a guy that could step in there. Jacob Kaminsky, he's a guy out of Canada. His brother's on the team. I think last year he may have been injured or maybe had some health concerns or something was going on. So I don't think he got on the field very much, if maybe at all. They like what he provides because I know a couple of years ago he was targeted and maybe caught 1 or 2 balls. But he's like a raw football player, but like newer to the sport. But they like what he has been able to do. So that's only some of them. J.J. Douglas is another one that they mentioned. McKeegan Ferguson, who I think they've switched him. And he was playing linebacker last year. He swung over. There's a bunch of dudes that they have in that room that, again, just throwing out names of guys that they are super excited about their potential and what they can bring to this year. So I think it's going to be a super open competition, but they've got options there of guys that can step up and win those jobs and be productive.
Well, let's move over to this offensive line. They return right guard Brady Plaucha and versatile guard Martin Coivisto. Behind those two, you have the guard duo of Matthew Neff and Jacob Booth. They have a combined 4 starts between them. So I just talked about 4 guys that have primarily played guard, but no tackles. So I'm a little bit concerned, like what they're going to do at the tackle position. Adam, what are your expectations for this offensive line heading into fall camp?
Yeah, I think without not trying to belittle these guys or anything like that, they're not the most like athletic specimens in terms of the tackles, right? You think of tackles as being those longer, big arms, like those type of guys. I'm not sure if they have those individuals, but they have competitors and they have experience and they have a ton of depth. And I think from what I remember from Drinkle and what he said in his press conference, that's kind of their motto, right? Like it doesn't necessarily have to be you have the perfect height and the perfect weight and you are this 4 or 5 star type of individual. Can you grind? Can you get in there, get nasty, get physical? And maybe you're a little bit shorter, or maybe you don't have the physical specimens that somebody across from you does, but can you gel together with the dudes that you have? And can you buy into our system and go win the line of scrimmage? And I think that's what they have. And again, not knowing much about offensive line myself, because I never played football, guys, it doesn't come down to like how big, how strong you are. It comes down to, can you gel together and can you protect the quarterback and can you open up holes for your running back? Can you be nasty? Can you move those defenders up front? They have a bunch of individuals that are there. They've got a bunch of individuals that haven't seen a ton of time, but they love the depth. They love the depth and they're excited about the competition. And I think they feel that they've got the options to, hey, maybe this guy can play guard. Maybe we can put him at tackle. They can slide individuals in different spots and be more dynamic offensively. And we'll see what happens. But you know that the strength of the line play on both sides of the ball is going to be very important for a physicality standpoint, which is what, again, Coach Drinkle came in and he applauded Coach McElwain and how physical this team was that he was running. They were a physical group. I know the record doesn't show you that they were winning a ton of games, but like they can beat you physically. And that's something that they want to continue to build on and take to the next level with this new staff and the new group that they have here in 2025.
If this offensive line just crushes it in 2025, it's because who stepped up?
Wow, that's a great question. Man. I think you do have to lean on some of that experience. I do look like at a guy like Brady Plaucha or a Martin Coivisto, or you look at a guy like Ryan Bloom that could get some snaps at center, or maybe a Matthew Neff. I know I'm giving you guys a few different names, but I think it's open right now. I don't have that one person like you could look to in years past and say, absolutely him, he's the experienced guy. I think it's open. There's a handful of guys, I think, in that room that have the ability to be that dominant figure and help that line get to where it needs to be, which again, I go back to 2021 and the last time we saw a Central Michigan line look like a Central Michigan line. I mean, it's easy to say, but like Lou Nichols was the leading rusher in all of college football. That's something that I will absolutely never forget, and something that Central Michigan will always be able to boast of. All of the teams in the FBS, they knew Lou Nichols was getting the rock and they still couldn't stop him. And I think there's an element of that to Coach Drinkle and Coach Chapin in this offense of like, we want to be able to bully you. And if you can't stop us, who says we're not just going to ram it down your throat? You know, that's part of the power spread attack. Whatever's working, you're going to roll with it. So we'll see. But I think there are multiple options here for who could step up and be that person. As to who, I don't know yet.
Is there a guy, given those returners and that experience, is there a guy there that you think looks that the team looks to as the leader of the offensive line?
Not for sure yet. I would think of guys like a Ryan or one of their transfers, a Pisa. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, or a Matthew. Just dudes that are in there that you think to the center, they need to be leaders. Ryan is a guy that they like. He's heady, he's tough, and so far he's done a good job of showing leadership qualities. And I would expect that whoever takes that center spot or gets the bulk of those snaps, they got to be the leader on that unit.
All right, Adam, if you were to pick an offensive player to have a breakout type season in 2025, who you got?
Brock Townsend, hands down. I told you guys off the air before we started, I am enthralled by this dude. I watched him run last year. He got a few snaps, and his motor was incredible. And even in games where, maybe they were out of it or things weren't going their way, or again, defenders were getting through, this dude looks like the real deal. And again, I've not seen a ton of Trey Cornish just because he just got here. But I've seen Nauri and I've seen Brock Townsend, and I know his bloodlines, and I know how he was coached in high school, and he looks like the real deal. So I am super excited about all three of those guys, but especially Brock Townsend as a guy that nobody knows about. Like, I could go around to anybody in the MAC and Brock Townsend, who's that? And I'm like, that's one of the three running backs that you got to keep an eye on this year.
Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. And just like the offensive side of the ball, there's a new coach on the defensive side too. Sean Cronin is the new defensive coordinator. He comes to Central Michigan after spending the past 3 seasons with Coach Drinkall at Army as their defensive line coach. Prior to Army, Cronin was the linebackers coach at Colorado State from 2020 to 2021. Can you describe the defensive scheme that Coach Cronin plans to run here at Central Michigan?
Yeah, I think there's going to be multiple looks, kind of like offense. I don't think they're set on exactly having one same look for them, but the base, I believe, is a 3-4 with the option of, I think the position they're calling is like the Fox, where the guy can put his hand down or he can drop back in coverage. But I would imagine from what we've seen, it's going to be a 3-4 base.
Well, let's dig into the position rooms that Coach Cronin will be coaching, and we got to start with the guys up front along that defensive line. This line will surely miss a couple guys on the interior with Jonah Pace, who's off to Iowa, and then Pius Ojugo, who's off to Ohio. The edges look to be good in terms of like returning guys, and it looks like there's some depth there as well. The edges are highlighted by the return of Michael Heldman and Cade Cuttis. But I'm really kind of curious about this interior. Has anyone, shined in the spring? Has Coach Drinkall or Cronin mentioned anybody, especially on that interior of the line?
Yeah, so there's a couple of guys, and you mentioned Cade Custis. They've actually moved him inside. So he was on the edge. Okay. They've moved him to a tackle. They think that's a better fit for him. He's a guy they were really impressed with, and I think we'll see a lot of snaps. And I've honestly been really impressed with him because he came in year one and he didn't do a lot, and then he got a little bit better, and now we have this year. So I think there could be one with a position change and just that extra year of experience. I think he's potentially a guy that's ready to maybe have a breakout season. The other one is Jonathan Decker. Great attitude, been around this program for a long time, and he's fought through adversity and guys on that line, but he's gotten a lot of snaps, and he's another one. I think that'll be paired with Custis right in there and should see a lot of snaps. But those are two guys that I think could be major players when it comes to helping stuff the run and slamming things down in the middle of the line.
Well, I talked about Pace and Heldman making life difficult for those in the MACs. The duo combined for 9 sacks in 2024. Who do you look to step up into those roles in week 1 against San Jose State and create that pressure on the quarterback?
Yeah, this is definitely what CMU has been missing the last couple of years, because you think back to when they were at their best, it seemed like they had one guy that was just hair on fire, could get to the quarterback and could get pressure without them having to blitz, right? Like I still feel like every defensive coordinator's dream when you can rush 3 or you can rush 4 and you don't have to blitz and you can still get pressure. Like, who doesn't want that? Michael Heldman to me is that guy. I mean, he's the all-time leader in QB hurries at Central Michigan. I think he had something like 20 or something. I mean, he had a ton last year. And although he didn't get sacks, and I still think he got like 8.5 sacks, I think he can be even better this year. And I think he's playing motivated. I mean, a lot of these guys, there's a ton of experience on the defense. You know, there's a ton of returners that are hungry to see the results team-wise of them getting back to what their expectation was when they decided to come to CMU. I mean, you think of the tradition here. You think of the championships that are here. This is one of the most successful football programs in the MAC. And it's been a while since they've won a MAC championship. So it's been now 3 years since they've even competed for one. I think that hunger plus the experience of what he's brought and, you know, new energy, new culture, which just talking to him the other day, he's one of the individuals that has said it feels different this year. Like it does feel different, the connection and that culture change that this new coaching staff has brought in. And this team has bought in. They've bonded. They've become super close. I think he is a guy that certainly can provide that quarterback pressure. And I would say another one is Fernando Sanchez. He's going to be another guy that I will step into that edge role on the other side and could be flipping between linebacker and playing the defensive line, depending on what they're doing in that 3-4 front. Those 4 guys, especially, I think have a chance to make some big plays this year and have a huge impact for how good this defense can be.
Moving over to the linebackers, this room looks to be in pretty good shape heading into 2025. Justin Whiteside has graduated, but the Chippewas returned several seasoned and experienced guys like Jordan Kwiatkowski and Dakota Cochran, Loai Brown, and Fernando Sanchez III. What are your expectations for this linebacker group here in 2025?
Yeah, I would compare this to the tight end group with more experience, like in terms of their excitement, right? Like the tight end group is the group that they have a ton of depth and are really interested to see how they can contribute. I think the linebackers for what seems like a 3rd or 4th straight year is the best position group defensively that this CMU team has. I mean, you said it with Jordan Kwiatkowski to get him back. He was incredible last year. Dakota Cochran, he's just been lingering, man. Like this dude is like, he seems like he's been around forever and been one of the most athletic guys they have in that room. And he should step into what should be a massive role this year. And Leviah, I feel like has kind of been under the table, Leviah Brown, in terms of like, he's a thumper, man. He brings it. Like he can hit you, and he's kind of got like a quiet, like polite demeanor to him, like off the field, but I think he could have a big year too. And there's individuals behind those guys that have an opportunity to have success. Again, Fernando Sanchez, he's played in that linebacker role before. I think he's going to be in that role a little bit this year. I mean, the linebacking core is part of the reason why when you think of CMU football, especially over the last 10 to 15 years, when I've been following it, they always seem to be able to stop the run. And maybe that hasn't been the case as much the last couple of years because of the way that their record finished. I think they're going to be able to stop the run specifically because of the linebackers that they have, able to plug those holes, get up the A and B gaps, and take away some of those easier short yardage situations that, hey, here's 3 yards. We should be able to pick this up and move the sticks. I don't know if that's the case this year with that linebacking core that you have for Central Michigan.
When I look at these linebackers, and to me, like Jordan Kwiatkowski kind of is like the headliner, if you will. Last season, he kind of seemed to live in the backfield with a team high 15 tackles for loss. What are the expectations for him in 2025? And like, how important is he to this defense?
He's super important. I mean, the expectations are incredibly high for Jordan Kwiatkowski, and I think he feels them and embraces them. He just got named to the Butt-Kiss Award watch list the other day. He's huge, man. Like, you walk up to him and you're just like, dude, you look like you could be a defensive lineman. And then you watch him out there and he runs like a linebacker. I mean, it's just, he's got a great attitude. He wants to win. He represented Central Michigan at MAC Media Day, and I think he's ready, just like everybody else is on this roster, to see it pay off. Like, see Central Michigan play competitive football in November, meaningful football late into the season to give them a chance to get to the MAC championship game again for the first time since 2019. So my expectations for him are sky high. I expect him to be a starter every single game, and I expect him to be one of the leading tacklers. And the next thing that this unit absolutely has to have, that they have not had for the last couple of years, we got to get some freaking turnovers, man. They have not been able to force turnovers the last couple of years for whatever reason. And they know that. So that has to be a big part of this group. They got to get some pressure on the quarterback, and they got to force some mistakes from that offense. And I think Jordan Kwiatkowski is a big individual in terms of dictating if that'll happen here in 2025.
Well, Adam, let's move on over to the defensive backfield. Now, I really want to hear your thoughts about this room because I feel great about the safety position with the returns of guys like Caleb Spann, Elijah Ricard, and Brendan Diaz-Fernandez. However, cornerbacks where I've kind of got some questions. The Chippewas lose 2024 starters and Deontay Kent and Duran McKinney to graduation. We kind of know what we have in Jaksa, and I assume he has one of those cornerback spots locked up. But I feel like it's more like just like a sight unseen for the other cornerback spot. I mean, there's plenty of guys in the room, and the staff didn't bring in too many cornerbacks from the portal. So, Adam, what are your expectations for this secondary heading into 2025?
Yeah, I think there's some unknown, right? I mean, especially when you look at the linebacker position and you look at the D-line and go, hey, there's guys that have played there that have experience. The number one person I'm looking at is Jayon Jackson. I mean, he was phenomenal last year as a true freshman. Rob Akey could not say enough good things about him last year, and you could understand why. Like, a guy that comes in, is super competitive, and just loves football, loves to get better. I wouldn't be surprised if he is one of your starters. And then you mentioned Brendan Diaz-Fernandez. They've moved him from safety to cornerback. Feel like it's more of a natural position. And that was a move that I recently just heard about. I think he is potentially your other guy that maybe lockdown is that other starter, depending on how camp shakes out. But I think when you talk about the quarterbacks, you absolutely have to start with talking about Diaz-Fernandez and Jackson.
Well, I want to know if this room is successful, plays above expectations, or even just to expectations. Who in this room is the reason for the success?
I think it's Jayon Jackson. I know I just mentioned him, but like, as a true freshman, you know, he reminded me of Dante Kent, the way that he came on last year as a true freshman. And Dante just got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they loved him. His freshman year, he came on, I think it was 2020, his freshman year. So it was weird and there weren't any fans, but he immediately was making plays, getting interceptions. I think I remember his first interception was at Eastern Michigan. And the way that Jayon Jackson came out and played last year, like, who is this true freshman that looks like he belongs and is running step for step with some of the best wideouts on the other team? Add a culture change and a new coaching staff, plus the experience that he had last year. Man, I think that dude is going to have a breakout season. I really have high expectations for him. And maybe that's unfair because he's only in his second year. But sorry, he looked too good last year to not, you know, if he stays healthy, be really, really special as his future continues in Mount Pleasant.
If you were to pick a defensive player to have a breakout type season here in 2025, who would that be?
I could say a guy like Jordan Kwiatkowski. I could say a guy like Dakota Cochran, but I really like Michael Heldman has had moments where he has been exceptional. But then he's had moments where they've needed a play and they're not able to get to the quarterback. Whether it's been last year or the year before, like they need that consistent person every single game, every third down. You know that this person is going to get in there. I think this year that's Michael Heldman. I really feel like he's about to have a big year. Because we've seen it in pieces, and he's stacked the numbers. He's had quarterback hurries. He's had sacks. His motor has been so good, but like consistently wise, every single game of having one or two individuals that can get to that quarterback and constantly cause issues. I think he's going to provide that this year, and I think he really could have an elevated season from what we've already seen, which has been a lot of good from him in his first few years in Mount Pleasant.
Well, we've talked about offense, defense. Let's talk about some special teams. How are those units looking, and are there any concerns heading into the season?
I think just new. There's a lot of talent on this roster, as I've continued to say. I'm not trying to just repeat what I've said, but there's new faces. So you're replacing your kickers. Like they have a brand new punter. They have a brand new place kicker. They have a returning place kicker that has only kicked off before. And then you got to find new returners because Marion Lukes is not back there anymore on kickoffs. And then also Dante Kent was returning punts last year. So that all is going to be new. With that said, they feel confident about the guys that they have in those positions. It's just a matter of, okay, once things get bright and we open the season on that Friday at San Jose State and you go to Pitt and you go to Michigan and then you get into MAC play, can you consistently make those plays in front of the fans under the lights? But they do feel good about the room and the talent that they have on special teams.
Well, now that we're getting ready to start full fall camp, which position group or groups do you think is the most concerning heading into 2025?
That's a good question. Based off of my PTSD and what I know makes Central Michigan go, I got to see this offensive line produce. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't do it. But I'm telling you, this is a completely different football team when that offensive line can run, block, and protect the quarterback. And it's become, I feel, the staple of Central Michigan just because of how many offensive linemen they've been able to send to the league. I mean, Fisher and Staley and Gutierrez and Raymond just got a brand new deal. And Gadecki, I mean, it seems like it's every couple of years, oh, there's another offensive lineman for CMU. They have to produce at the offensive. They got to be able to block this year to have and I know it all starts up front on both sides of the ball. But going back to talking with you guys at the beginning of this, when you said the MAC is an offensive conference, you got to be able to put up some points. You have to be able to possess the ball. Nobody wants to be consistently on defense in 20-degree and snowy or rainy sleet conditions in November. You'd like to be controlling the football, being able to run the football, and hopefully having a lead and being able to drain the clock while wearing out your opponent. You can't do any of those things if you can't consistently block at the point of attack. Again, there's a ton of depth there, but they're new. They have to prove themselves. Like I think a lot of individuals and parts of this team will have to do this year. For me, though, offensive line, can they step up and be good consistently throughout the season? I think that's going to determine if Central Michigan is going to have the special season that they're hoping for.
Well, Adam, in today's age of NIL revenue sharing, the transfer portal, what has Coach Drinkall communicated as it pertains to Central Michigan's recruiting philosophy?
Yeah, he wants guys that want to be here. He feels that if you can get these guys up on campus, which I think is half the battle, you got a good shot of getting them here. Central Michigan, we're in the middle of nowhere. But once you get them to campus, and they see all the facilities and they see the history and the tradition, this is a place that a lot of people want to come to. So we've seen it. We had guys come back from last year's team. We had incoming freshmen come in, but we also have had some transfer portal additions as well. I think the good thing about Coach Drink and this staff, they are innovative, but they are ever evolving in what they're doing and trying to be creative about who they are and what they are. But at the end of the day, like, they want dudes that want to be here. So, and again, I feel like I could have said those similar things for Coach Mack or any of the prior coaches at CMU or maybe any of the coaches in the MAC or in college football. But like, it really is like, you need to get dudes that are willing to sacrifice themselves for the team and that want to be here, that have good attitudes, and then that are competitive. Like, hey, the end goal here is you want to go win championships. You want to leave a legacy. You want to remember these great teams that you get to participate on. And yeah, you're going to remember the guys that you suit up with, but like the things you talk about, you hear all these players come back. You talk about how you did against Western Michigan. You talk about if you were able to win a MAC championship. Like, you talk about those moments. And CMU has been missing those moments the last couple of years. So Coach Drinkle is trying to find individuals to bring that championship mentality back here to Mount Pleasant. But it isn't, I don't think, in just what I've seen from 6 or 7 months from him, exclusive to doing it one way or the other. He is open to doing things however they seem fit or whatever helps them bring in the right guy that they specifically are looking for.
Given their short time there on campus, how do you feel the staff at Central Michigan has done navigating the transfer portal?
I think they've done a good job. Like I said, you go through all the position groups like we just did, guys, and I know that there's a lot of names that maybe you haven't heard of or haven't had standout performances in years past. Now, some of them there are, but there's a lot of new faces. And some of that they've already been here and they maybe haven't had a huge role, or like a Trey Cornist, they've transferred in and we'll see what they look like this year. They have a lot of depth. And I think, again, when you look at every single position group, I didn't really expect that. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to, it's always been like in the past before the transfer portal, you had to give a coach 3 to 4 years before you expected in football them to get things turned around, right? Or at least that's how I thought. Now with the transfer portal, if you can go out and get the right pieces, you might be able to win in year 1. You might be able to win in year 2. I mean, look at Indiana last year. Look what they were able to do in the Big Ten. Like, say what you want, but that's arguably the best conference in college football, or it was last year, and they're in the playoff. So, like, there's examples of that, but then there's also examples of coaches that come in and it still does take them a couple of years. I, sitting here in early August, have started telling people I wouldn't be surprised if Central Michigan is playing meaningful football in November in year 1 and is the surprise of the MAC that has an opportunity to get back to the MAC championship. When they hired him in December, I didn't know, guys. Like, you know me, I'm not going to fluff. I certainly want Central Michigan to win, but I'm not going to tell you something that's not true. But seeing the way that they've stocked all of the position groups, I feel good about what they got, and I think they feel good about what they got. Does that mean it's going to equate to wins and getting to the top of the MAC in year 1? No. But I think they've set themselves up for success. And coming back to your question, I think they've done a really good job in the transfer portal. I think they've gotten the pieces that they need to make this team the best that it can be here in year 1, which is already a daunting task when it's a complete transition. And like you mentioned, they've only been, some of them, on campus for less than 7 months.
Well, Adam, you're excited about the team. You're excited about the depth. What do you think the main strength of this team in 2025 is going to be?
The culture. Everything you hear about this group is how much they love the coaches, how the coaches have really supported them, how tight-knit they have become with each other, and just the confidence level that they have. And again, guys, I mean, they're coming off 3 straight losing seasons. So you can understand if they're coming into this year kind of down. And I mean, you're going to get excited about a new season every year. It's an opportunity to go out there and play football. I mean, for those guys, that's everything. But you can understand if they come in, hey, questioning yourselves a little bit. I'm not hearing any of that. And I'm continually hearing about how much this coaching staff has provided. Like, they are clearly selfless, egoless individuals that want the best for this team, that want the best for this program, and they want the best for this university. And a lot of times you hear people say that and they're just plug and play words. It's not the case. I mean, I was at fall camp the other day and Coach Drinkle took the time to bring out the food staff. So they've got a training table that they've set up in the front of the Chippewa Champion Center, which is the end zone building at Kelly Short Stadium. That's new. That's something that Coach Drinkle said, hey, we absolutely have to have this. And it's not just for football. It's for all the student athletes to come in there. You walk in the CCC now, it smells tremendous every time because it's basically like the lunchroom. But he brought out the entire food staff while he's got the guys gathered and said, listen, this is important. These guys are doing something for you that a lot of other football programs don't have. They are necessary to hopefully when we have the success that we do on the field, it's because of individuals in this community and around this university that are helping pull their weight to do everything they can for us, right? Like it's a very selfless, but group that they appreciate all the little stuff around them, the support staff, the people in communications, the people that are coming out to just do what they can to help this football program succeed. And that has leaked around to the players. They're very grateful and thankful for the coverage they get, for the people that are helping them out, and for the coaching staff that is doing everything to build up their confidence and tell them, we are going to do everything we can for you. Now, in return, we need you guys to do everything you can for us. Let's hit the football field and see what we can get this year. So the culture, to me, is always super important in any sport, but especially when you're dealing with a brand new coaching staff and you're taking over for a program that, again, has been down a little bit and hasn't had a championship in, coming up on a couple of decades. And that's different. This is the longest stretch since Central Michigan joined the MAC in 1975. This is the longest stretch they have gone without a MAC championship. Okay. So it's different than what we're accustomed to, but that's not what's driving them. Their drive is the coaching staff supporting them and them supporting each other, building each other up. And that, to me, is super important. Again, how do you win in year one with a brand new group? You got to face adversity. You got to win tight games. And you guys know how tight the MAC is. If you're going to go win a tight game against a Toledo team that's got a coach that's been here for 10 plus years and a program that knows what's going on, you have to have a great culture to face adversity and go win a game like that. Will they do that? Again, I don't know, but everything from when he took over in December to now tells me that they are closer in that aspect than they've been in a few years.
So we've talked about it continually through this episode so far, a brand new staff. The recent history of Central Michigan football, not so great. What does success look like for the Chippewas in 2025?
I want them playing meaningful football in November. I think that's a totally fair goal. Like a bowl game and meaningful football in November. If that turns into getting to the MAC championship game, total success. But it's been a couple of seasons where you're under 500 in conference, and yeah, you got a chance at a bowl game, but you got to squeak your way in with wins at the end, and you're already out of the race. I want bowl game, and I want meaningful football. Like when we turn the calendar to the midweek MACtion in November, Central Michigan sitting in the middle to the top of the standings, and you're going, okay, they've got this, and this game coming up. They've got an outside shot to get to the MAC championship game. I think that's totally fair. Because, again, I've seen the talent that they've built on this roster. I have a ton of respect for the coaches that have come in. I think they are really doing things the way that it should be done. Selflessness and intricate details matter, right? Like, if you want to be great in something, it comes down to those important little details. And it just seems like this staff has their hands on every single detail, whether it's in-game related or, like I was talking about, whether it's support staff related or getting the players what they need so that they feel encouraged about coming into that football building every day. Meaningful football in November. That, to me, as a guy that is an alum, and I'm not sure you're going to find many individuals that have been around this program for 15 years that are starving more than I am to see this program succeed, just because of all of the people that I know that love Central Michigan and specifically love Central Michigan football. This place would absolutely catch on fire emotionally if they got to tag along and hop on that roller coaster ride from August 29th to November, and they had a chance going into the final couple weekends. Like, you got Toledo, who's one of the picks in the league. They are coming into your barn on the final day of the regular season, the same way that you did it in 2019. And remember, 2019 was coming off a one-win season, and you changed coaches, and Jim McElwain has the best turnaround in college football. Toledo comes to Mount Pleasant. You haven't beaten Toledo since like 2009, and you thump them, and you're in the MAC championship game. How fun of a ride would this place emotionally just catch on fire if CMU's got a chance to go to the MAC championship and catch a bowl game come the end of 2025 or 2026? It'd be electric. So that's what I'm hoping for, and I think that is a realistic goal. I'm not saying, hey, you need to go win a MAC championship year one, but if you're playing competitive football, if you're on the right side of 500 and can build a winning record again in the MAC, which hasn't been done for a few years, and you got a chance to sneak into that MAC championship game, I think that's a successful season in year one for these guys.
You talk about that success being playing meaningful football in November. When I look at this schedule, at least here in early August and on paper, I think the conference schedule sets up perfectly to allow that to happen. You don't, in my opinion, you don't really play the favorites or tougher teams until the back half of that conference schedule. But I'm interested in your opinion, Adam. Is there a critical point in that schedule that you look at?
I think there's a couple points, but you nailed it. I mean, if you guys remember last year, go look at 2024 for CMU. They had the most difficult schedule in the MAC. It was incredibly difficult. And you look at it this year and you go, all right, who won the MAC last year? Ohio, not on the schedule. Who's another team that's been super physical and in the 2010s dominated the MAC and is leaving at the end of this year? NIU, not on the schedule. Toledo, again, a favorite on the schedule, but the last week of the season, and they're at home. Okay, let's go to the other team that made the MAC championship game last year, the Miami Redhawks. Not on the schedule, right? Again, I'm not saying that you're just going to roll over this schedule, but it's the third easiest schedule in the MAC this year as compared to the most difficult schedule last year. So my key pieces this year, the non-conference is absolutely brutal. San Jose State on the road is going to be electric out there on a Friday night. That is going to be a tough place to play. The Mountain West knows how to play ball. And San Diego State came into Mount Pleasant under year one, and they gave CMU everything they could handle and more, and Central Michigan escaped. You got to go do that under the lights on the road with a brand new coaching staff and a brand new team. Tough game. Then you go to Pitt. Toledo, Pitt played a great game in the bowl game. Toledo ended up winning. That's at their place. That'll be tough. Then you go to Michigan. You got Sharon Moore, who I don't know is going to be on the sideline or not, but like he's a former CMU assistant. You know he's going to be up for that game and playing in front of 110,000 people against a Big Ten opponent. That will not be easy. Okay, so like the first part, can you stay healthy through those first 3 daunting games? And can you find your identity while playing some difficult opponents? And then finally you get to come home and play Wagner. I think, as mentioned, you get a game at home to open the MAC against Eastern Michigan, and you go on the road against Akron. Winnable games. Winnable game against a first-year head coach in Bowling Green. To me, I'm going to circle this one because, again, I know what this rivalry is, and I know that Toledo and Bowling Green gets the pub in the MAC, but I will never sleep on how incredible the Central Western rivalry is. It is unlike anything I've experienced before, especially when you go to Kalamazoo. And I hate to give them credit, but their fans are nasty. That's a different game when you go out to Waldo Stadium. So you talk about me going back to playing meaningful football. Guys, you open the season November 1st at Western Michigan. Now, story behind that game, that's been a midweek game for like 4 or 5 years, and the fans have been pissed about it. Why don't we get the rivalry game, the biggest game of the year, on a Saturday? It is back on a Saturday, and you got to go play at their place on a Saturday. To me, that game is going to be massive in dictating if they have a chance to go to the MAC championship. They need to win that game because that's an emotional roller coaster. You win or lose that game, how you're feeling heading to Buffalo, Kent State, and then obviously Toledo. So breaking it down into a couple parts, get through the non-conference, see if you can get off to a good start and win a game or 2 in the MAC, and then that Western Michigan game on a Saturday at Waldo Stadium, that is going to be delicious.
Hey, Adam, is there anything else that you want to share or think that we need to know about this 2025 Central Michigan football team?
I really just think it's keep an eye on them. And I know I'm coming with the maroon and gold shaded glasses, but I try and keep it real. And I think there's something here. And that's not an easy thing to say when there's 6 new head coaches, I think, out of the 13 in the league. Like there's brand new head coaches all up and down the MAC. So any one of these new head coaches could have a breakout year. It could happen. But I think CMU has got a great opportunity to turn this thing around. One, we watched it firsthand in 2019. Jim McElwain came in, he completely changed the culture, and they won right away. Everything I've seen from this staff and these players and the experience that they have, I think that's the other thing. Maybe the offense takes some time to kind of gel and figure it out, but I do like that the defense has a lot of experience on it, especially in the front 7, right? Like they bring back a decent amount of dudes on the defensive line. The linebacking room is stocked. Can you go and, win or compete in some ugly games while your offense sorts things out? I think it's possible. And the other thing is, look at the schedule last year, guys. They finished 4-8? They had like 3 or 4 games. They were within like 7 or 8 points and easily could have won. Now you can flip that the other way, and there were a couple of close games they could have lost. But to me, the MAC is not this like overarching league where you can't just like completely overhaul things and then it's going to take you 3-4 years. You can come in if you have a good structure, and I think Central Michigan has done an incredible job of building a great structure, great facilities, people that care about this place, people that love and are passionate about this football program and will wrap their arms around it. You've got that here. So if you get the right guy in charge, you get the right staff, and you get the players to buy in, you can do this thing. And I think Central Michigan, they'll never get any of the headlines this year. It'll be Toledo, it'll be Miami, it'll be Ohio, and you'll look at Buffalo and what Lembo did last year in year 1. But all I'm saying, look out for Central Michigan. I think they got a shot to be the surprise in the MAC, and I'm really excited to watch.
Well, Adam, we want to thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and share your knowledge. We greatly appreciate it. But before we let you go, we want to give you an opportunity to share with the listeners where they can find you and maybe some things that you have coming up or that you're working on.
Yeah. Well, first off, let me just thank you guys. Like anybody that covers the Group of 5 conferences or covers the MAC, I'm super appreciative of. And you guys, man, thank you, because I know all the coverage that the Big Ten and the SEC and everybody else rightfully deserves that they get. But I really appreciate your guys' in-depth breakdowns. You guys do your homework, and that doesn't go unnoticed. So I appreciate you guys for doing that. Number 2, find me on Instagram at Adam Jaksa, Jaksa. Find me on Twitter, same thing. And breaking news, this is brand new. After I think TikTok started in 2016, it's 2025. As of yesterday, I now have a TikTok. So we've got a couple of videos on there. But you'll find me. I'm doing Lansing Lugnuts baseball right now until the middle of September. And then we are all in Central Michigan football and basketball and volleyball, and can't wait for the whole thing to get started. But any of those platforms, come follow me, and you're going to get some MACtion content. So be prepared.
Well, thank you again, Adam. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review on Amazon Music, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we are the G55. 1, 2, 5 Central.